Welcome to Dignity Leadership Podcast. We are so glad you have joined us here today.
I'm Rich Levine, the Chief Dignity Officer.
And I'm Brooke Coleman, the Chief Inspiration Officer.
I practice leadership using my Master's of Science degree in Leadership and Change and a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Sociology. I've examined how people try to work better together my entire career.
And I practice leadership using an industrial organizational psychology degree with a focus on organizational behavior. A background in areas of sales, education, and management have allowed me to study and work with people at many different levels. In this podcast series, we want to expose the lessons we have learned through work and life experiences with the intent to encourage more people to learn, to grow, and to become better leaders. Together, we can create a world of dignity.
All right, Brooke. So here we are back for another episode in 2022. So, in all these podcast series, we have not talked much about middle management, and I have no idea why.
Yes. Yeah. So good morning. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Good evening. Middle management. That tightrope.
It is a tightrope, and you're either getting pulled up by the top or pushed down by the top, or you're getting pulled down by the people below you because they want your time. And you're in this awkward middle position. So what is middle management anyway? Right. Do you have a good idea what it is?
The question is, what is middle management? I feel like you wear 10 different hats all the time. What would you say?
All right. So here's the deal. You know me, right?
Yeah.
So I've got to go out and I've got to find out some real information. So I hit Google.
Okay.
And I just typed in, what is middle management? The first thing that popped up, I clicked on it, and here's what it said. Middle managers are responsible for managing the daily workflow of their team. Their goal is to make sure the day-to-day tasks of their staff are meeting the overall objectives of the company. While working in this role, you'll make sure employees are staying focused on their work. Now, if we break that down, does that not sound like the CEO of a company?
It sounds like you have all the responsibility and the weight on your shoulders. That's exactly what it sounds like.
And none of the glory.
None of the glory.
So you're there, you're busting your butt, you're working your tail off, and you're trying to take care of your people. But here's one of the things, and kind of one of the reasons why we started the podcast, right? If we go back, and it was to help people become better leaders,
right,
to grow out. And what happens with these managers is they get put in these positions and they're like expected to become leaders, but yet they've never had anybody teach them any leadership skills. And so here they are, based on this definition, they're pretty much responsible for leadership of a lot of people.
They are. And if you think about it, how do you get to that position, right? You've either been in your current position for several years within your current company organization, or you're looking at a job posting online. It needs 10 years of experience. Well, you've already had, 7 or 8, so you give it a shot. But do you have that leadership experience? Probably not. And what does that even mean? Do you even know when you're going into that, into that new level? So here you are stepping up, but what are the tools that you need to take with you?
Well, I think some people have. So I've experienced a couple of things. Let's kind of start that phrase over. So here's what I've experienced is people are really good at doing tasks, and they get a lot of things done, and they're a high performer, high production employee.
Yes.
And so they tap them on the shoulder and say, guess what? You're the next one up because you're really good at all these things. And then kind of what I've discovered when I've been working and looking, those people that are high performers, high task doers are usually pretty happy where they're at. And they don't want the pressure of becoming a middle manager. But yet, because they're performing well, everybody says, well, you're a leader because you can perform. I started looking for people that come out of the gates running fast, being really high in performance and production, and then fall off because they're no longer engaged. They need a challenge. So they're looking for some learning. So then I started grabbing them and we started having conversations with them. Hey, are you interested? Is there a way we can move you into the different parts of the organization and teach you some of these things? But then that opens up the other deal. And I'm not going to say I'm the best. Obviously, there's a reason why I'm here because I've changed. I've learned. I was a middle manager. I did a lot of wrong things, but middle management they need mentors. They need people that are willing to help them and bring them along and show them the ropes. And there's been a lot of gaps in there. So it's a tough road.
It is, I was just thinking this as you said it. You can't even move beyond. You can't just go from being an employee to jumping into the C-suite, or an executive level. You have to do your due diligence in that middle management position. And I think that's the key. So many people want to continue to jump forward. They don't want to stay there. And there is something to that. If you're doing it well, you're looking for training, and hopefully the people above you saw that and are pouring into you and really saying, hey, this is worth investing in. And if not, what are you doing to improve your skill set and to learn? Because your employees deserve that as well. So there is that self-awareness portion of it, that empathy, that emotional intelligence that is so key when you move into that new level.
Yeah. And there's another component here too we haven't ever talked about on the show. And in middle management, you're also a follower.
Absolutely.
So not only are you leading teams, but you're also following we'll call them the head honchos, LFAs, the ones that are all the way on the top. And I think today's guest also speaks a little bit of Spanish. Am I correct?
You are correct.
So you guys aren't going to go all Spanish on me, are you?
We'll be doing the entire thing in Spanish, subtitles at the bottom. No, just kidding.
So today we do have a middle management person on our show today, correct?
We do.
It's a guest you invited for us. Tell us a little bit about our guest today.
Yes, I'm super excited. Our guest today is Jaime Kano. He is someone I've had the pleasure of knowing over the last few years. We worked together, and then I moved into a position of management, and he became we went from being colleagues to manager and employee, and quickly moved up the ropes, became a team lead. He's just incredible with people. If I were to explain Jaime Kano to people, I'd say he walks into a room, he makes a presence, and people talk about him as he leaves. He is impressive. Because he's a people person. And I used to give him a hard time about this too. Like, man, you're being too nice. You gotta, and he would say, oh yeah, I know it, but I just care so much about the people. He is phenomenal with people. He's also learned how to build curriculum. He does phenomenal training. He is an assistant director at a young early childhood education and development school in Austin, Texas. He's a medical interpreter. He is a Spanish medical interpreter at this time, but he's also getting his degree in sign language, which is a beast. It's incredible, that skill in itself. And he'll probably share a little bit about that. It is intense.
So let's go back and review. So sign language, Spanish,
yes,
English,
yes.
What else does he do in terms of language? Just the three? Only
well,
three?
The three spoken and written though too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just a really cool dude. And I say dude because he is such a good friend as he was a colleague. I learned so much from him, even as I stepped into a role of leadership. What else can I tell you about him?
And then you said you met Jaime when you were working in the healthcare industry, correct?
Yeah. So we met. He was my preceptor. We met in the hospital. I was starting out as a medical interpreter, and he had already been there for about a year when I stepped into that role. And my first day at one of our largest hospitals, he was the guy that was showing me around. And on that day, when I talk about being a people person, we would walk into any area of the hospital. I'm talking maternity, surgery, ICU even. And people would say, hey, Jaime, oh, great. Are you here for me? Hey, are you? Oh, okay. You're showing somebody around. All right. And then they'd say, you've got a great guy right here. And I was just, and here I am just blinking, trying to take it all in at the time. But yeah, incredible. Mm-hmm.
And so looking through our notes, because we have a few notes in front of us, but he said he learned Spanish growing up in a bilingual home and traveling throughout Mexico.
Yeah, he grew up in Southern Texas in a bilingual home. And he'll even tell you, for him, like learning Spanish was just a part of his growing up. But I think that medical terminology and just the precision of it, he has honed over the years. And I think so. He did not say this in his little bio. We were asking him, like, hi, man, just tell us a little bit about you or more about you. But in his assistant director role, he is also using his bilingual skills because it's a bilingual school.
Yeah. And so this is a different path for a guest on our show that we've done before. In the past, we've brought on people with a master's degree in leadership or some type of, they've got some big, accreditation on where they're at. And then, so we bring on Jaime. So I know our listeners are going to go, all right, so you bring in our middle manager, why Jaime? So number one, I believe in bringing the smartest people possible onto the show. And if Jaime knows 2 languages, he's already ahead of me. So he's already smarter than me. So therefore, he's automatically got instant street cred because he's smarter than me. And I like surrounding myself because I can learn something from somebody that knows more than me. And then another interesting tidbit that you were telling me about when we were getting ready to work with Jaime is he's a husband and a father of twin daughters.
Twin daughters. And those girls are firecrackers. They are so fun. They're bilingual. It's incredible. Like the entire family is bilingual. So it's just so fun to watch them all together. And his wife is an artist. She is so talented. I just love watching all the dynamics. This is the neat thing about Jaime. He wears so many different hats. When we talk about middle management, I even said that you're wearing 10 different hats. In his life, he just embodies that as it is. And I think that's what makes him such a great middle manager and a follower and that leader.
Well, and then you talk about balance and diversity. And another note is you told me he's also a musician.
He's done it all. And at one point he had started a catering company. He was a vegetarian for years. Tidbit, he eats meat now, but
we won't bring that up. We'll be good.
Yeah, no, he's done so many. He's willing to test the waters, to jump in and to try something new.
Well, that's awesome. So let's see. He's entrepreneur. He teaches. He's a director of education. He's raising a family. He's a medical interpreter. He's a musician, a chef. I think it's probably about time we just we introduce Jaime to our audience.
Yes, it is time.
All right. So welcome to the show. We have Jaime Kano. Jaime, welcome.
Thank you so much. Hi, how are you doing?
We're doing great. So I got to ask you a question. How do we do on your bio?
That was excellent. I feel very proud for
you should be proud.
you being able to read that about me. That's great.
You got a lot of great accomplishments. So one of the things I always do, and I bring people on, and I'm going to, as a guest, first time guest on here, Jaime, is what is your definition of leadership?
That's a great question. And I really like how, in the intro, you were both talking about middle management. And, that really brings to mind really the difference between manager and leader. Hopefully in that Venn diagram, there's a lot of crossover with the two. But essentially, as a manager, as you said, at a minimum, you're just making sure everybody's on task, getting their work done, staying productive. And the difference between somebody who's simply a manager versus a leader is that leader is somebody who can really, using their social skills, that's really intrinsic in a leader. But somebody who can use those social skills to guide another person or a whole team from wherever they're at to a place of completion, be it with a project or a goal or different challenges. There's somebody who, using their social skills, can really take you from wherever you're at to wherever you're going.
So did you have a mentor to help you develop your social skills, or is this something that you think you've just come along naturally?
I mean, I feel like developing my social skills. I'm a very social person, but something that I'm really trying to get better about and learn from different, mentors is how to use those social skills to really be a good listener, to really be a good somebody who can really hear what somebody needs and be able to guide them in the way that really speaks best to them. So I think, I'm naturally just a talker. I'm a social person. I like, meeting new people and interacting with people. But I think, where I'm really learning to grow is from, the boss that I currently have at the preschool where I work. She's been a director and a teacher for longer than anybody else that I know, for decades and decades and decades. And so I really learned a lot from her. I learned how to be that leader for a staff of teachers that are very diverse backgrounds, very diverse levels of experience, and just how she is really able to, take them from one place that they start to becoming, incredible teachers that gives our school such a great reputation. So I learn a lot from her. I tend to learn a lot, honestly, from my family. My family, it really has shown me in very positive ways my weaknesses socially. I can also be an emotional person. I can also be sometimes hot-headed. So I've really learned how to temper those things so that I can just be a good husband and father. Sometimes, our personalities get in the way of that. But so I learn a lot from my family as well.
So you've touched on a couple things that pique my interest so we're just going to put you in the bucket. We're not trying to categorize you, but we're going to stick you in there anyway, of middle manager. And you've mentioned several times that you're in this constant learning phase.
Yeah.
So number one, I think that what's really key here is that you've always got to be willing to learn. And number two, the other thing you keep touching on is that you haven't said the word yet, but you're self-aware. You understand how your actions may impact somebody, whether it be positive or negative. And then I hear you saying you're taking that feedback, which is awesome. And you're going, like your family keeps you in check. Okay, well, I believe a lot of families keep us in check, but what are you doing about that? Are you continuing to be the same quote unquote jerk? Or are you trying to take that information back and become better? And what I hear from you, Jaime, and talk with you is you're constantly like, okay, how can I get a little better?
Absolutely. And again, I think that is, one of the qualities of being an effective leader is somebody who can really humble themselves and, like you said, just be very self-aware so that, you know where your limitations are, where your weaknesses are, and you are humble enough to look around you and see most of the time that there is a wealth of knowledge and information amongst the people that we're surrounded by. And so I feel like, one of the things that makes somebody a good leader is recognizing that and being able to use that feedback and use that information to grow as a person, but also to grow as that manager, as somebody who is in a position of leadership.
What about taking those same skills, because you do that so well, and building the training that you need for your employees at your school? I know that within the healthcare system, as an interpreter, you were helping with a training system, right? You were creating an entire curriculum there. Talk about that and just how, one, your position in that, like, where you need it in that, and then also why is that even important?
Well, that's a great question. For me, education is so important in my life, particularly because I love learning and I love learning new things, new skills, but I also love teaching. And, for me, my instinct is to teach. And so as soon as I learn something new, whether I really understand it or not, I want to teach somebody else. I want to show other people this new thing and this new information that I now have that I just think everybody should have. So both of those really work together. And so one of the things that I use when I'm developing training for either teachers or for interpreters that I'm currently working for, is I try to figure out what makes sense to me. So if I'm trying to learn this really difficult concept, for example, detransposition of the great arteries in the heart, and I'm trying to learn what that means, what structurally that looks like in the heart, how that affects, the blood flow in the heart, what are the possible procedures and treatments. When I'm trying to learn all of those things, I really sort of pay attention to that. What was helpful to me when I was trying to learn these complicated ideas? What did I use as either mnemonics or ways to remember these concepts? And then that's what I sort of use to implement in my trainings. The other part of that too is, again, I really try to use social skills, but effective social skills to figure out how to really reach people on an individual level, and also obviously on a group level. But each member of that group has to be competent, and they have to know what they have to know to do their job well. So I really try to find ways that really speaks to the individual, and again, stay humble and receive that feedback. I just finished putting. I'm sorry.
Well, I have a question there. I just want to, you said you have to really hone in on, the social skills for the individual. That is huge in leadership, right? I mean, you need to know your people, but how do you do that? How do you do that? Have you thought about that?
Part of the way that I do that is, really, and it's a fine line. I think as a middle manager, and I think y'all had earlier used the expression, stuck in the middle. And I really celebrate the middle. I really do. I think that in the middle, or as middle manager, one of the things that you can do is, yes, there is a level of professionalism, and you have to draw a line between friends and coworkers sometimes, or friends and colleagues, especially if you're in a leadership position. Sometimes, drawing a line between friends and subordinates can be very important. But there is also really a level of getting to know your team on a personal level, not just to figure out what makes them tick and what makes them learn or how they learn best, but how to properly and effectively engage them so that they continue to be productive. They continue to be interested in learning more about the field. And so to me, asking somebody how their day's going, asking somebody how their weekend was, how their family's doing, remembering their kids' names, remembering the fact that they have family in another country, remembering these different things about their personal lives is a way to connect with each other, but it's also a way for me to show them I really care about you, and I care about what you need to be able to perform at your peak level. So I feel like it's all really part of the same strategy. So
you mentioned a couple more things that have got me really going, that I just absolutely love. I love what you're about and where you're at. And you're a natural born leader, I can tell already. And only 10% of the world's population are natural born leaders.
Did you know that only 10% of the world's population are natural born leaders?
The other 90% of us have to learn. So I've had to go through the school of hard knocks. Jaime, I wish I had your intuition and your just gut instincts to do the right things, because everything you're talking about is everything I've been trained on to do. But you brought up two things that I absolutely love. Number one, you keep coming back to this thing that you keep saying that you're willing to learn. Mm-hmm. And then to top it off, where you are stuck in the middle, we'll just use that term, that's just absolutely phenomenal, is you said, then you want to go and you want to teach others.
Yeah.
So you're learning, but then you're not holding the information. You're out sharing it with other people, and that helps develop them, makes them better. So now I've got the ultimate question for you. And there's no right or wrong answer, but are you a leader or are you a follower?
That's a really great question. And one of the reasons that I feel like I celebrate being in that middle position is because I believe I'm a good leader, and I feel like I'm also a really good follower. So I would say both. I feel like I'm really adept at working to support both, the team, the boots on the ground, so to speak, and then also the leadership that is above me. I feel like I'm really great at connecting both sort of parts of the organization. I feel like I'm a good advocate for both. Whenever leadership has a task that needs to be done and there's no ifs, ands, or buts, I feel like I'm great at conveying that message, but also explaining why it's important. This is something I've also had to learn along the way, is the why, the all important why. So I feel like I'm getting really good at explaining why these things are important, but also expressing to leadership, well, in order to do this, this is what our team is going to need. So I feel like I'm a great advocate for both. But, it can be exhausting sort of, being in a leadership position and making those final decisions and finding those creative solutions and making sure everyone is on task and completing their work. That can be super exhausting. And I do love that challenge sometimes. I love using my creativity and intelligence to find new ways of accomplishing goals and creating efficiencies and designing training and curriculum. But sometimes I don't want to do that. Sometimes that's very exhausting, and I have my own things that I have to work on and my own productivity that I need to be keeping up with. So sometimes it really feels nice to just be told what to do. And it feels nice to, just let someone lead me and to just do the task at hand and accomplish it and do it well, ask for something that I might need. So that's why I feel like it's really, the more that I think about it, it's important to sort of be both. And right now I'm actually considering all the other things I have going on in my career. I really like having the opportunity to be both.
So when we were talking earlier in the introduction, we we're talking about you're going through your bio and bringing you on. Brooke mentioned that you're one of those people that everybody knows, everybody likes, everybody loves, and everybody wants to be around. Jaime, what do you think that you bring into an organization or a team that sets you apart from, set you apart from the pack, from everybody else? What makes Jaime different or special or unique that no one else has?
This is going to require me to speak not so humbly about myself.
But you are very humble and we appreciate that. So, let's hear it. Honestly, Throw it out there.
Well, I know this sounds super simple and I know that it sounds, maybe a little trite, but what I've been told before is that I guess three things. One, I'm a very friendly person, and friendly really gets you pretty far, I have to say. So, I'm a very friendly person. I think I have a friendly demeanor. I tend to smile a lot. That's sort of my default face. And I have resting.
But sorry to interrupt, but contrary, mine is the resting. We don't use the word, but it's everybody's like, Rich, why do you look like you're pissed off?
Resting mad face.
Resting mad face. There you go. I need your ability to smile more, because
yes, it's so good.
Well, it's my default. Like I said, I smile when I'm feeling good, when I'm feeling nervous, when I'm feeling bad. It's just my default. So, but that's one thing that I feel really helps break down barriers and really eases tension and helps create a more personalized relationship with people. I've also been told that when I speak with people, that I really sort of make them feel like I'm putting 100% of my focus on what they're saying and what they need and what they're trying to communicate. And that engagement, I think, really helps people feel that they're important, and it helps people feel like what they are and what they do and what they need matters. And the other part of that too is I think I just bring, I'm not a hyper person. I'm just very active. And so I think I bring this level of energy that's not exploding out of the walls or out of the room, but it's an active energy, and people can see that. People see that I'm busy. I'm always doing things. I'm always working. I'm always working on something. I'm always starting something new. I'm always just sort of stepping into the empty space where things need to just be done, stepping up and stepping forward sort of thing. So I think it's those three qualities that I've been really told.
I'm going to test one of your qualities, and we're just going to put you in a real life scenario for our listeners out there that might be like you and be in this middle management position. Mm-hmm. So my question to you, Jaime, is what advice would you give other middle managers that have a problem and you're trying to communicate that problem uphill to your boss, your manager, your leader? And how do you, I mean, what keys do you use? How do you get that message to get it communicated? I'm sure you're not 100% successful because I don't think anybody can always push stuff uphill. It's very difficult. But you have any advice that you'd give our listeners?
Sure, absolutely. And, you know, this is something that I am working on currently with one of my teams, is always approach your leadership or your team as a whole. When there's an issue, when there's something that needs to be resolved, when there's a problem, always come with as many solutions to said problem as you possibly can. So if there's an issue that my team is experiencing, I get a lot of complaints about we don't have enough equipment to do X, or our chairs are very uncomfortable, so I need a backrest because that's going to help me be more productive and stay on for longer on my shift. So what I'm trying to work with my team on is showing them, okay, so what do you feel is the best solution for X? What do you think is going to be reasonable, affordable, something that will not take months and months and months to obtain? So just trying to allow people the opportunity to think through a solution and then take that to leadership. And the same can work both ways. You know, if you have an issue with one of your subordinates or one of your employees, always coming to the table with those solutions is absolutely helpful. And the other part too is that people are so much more receptive to hearing issues or problems when it's created in that sandwich sort of format. We're going to start with the positive, we're going to get to the nitty gritty and the negative in the middle, and we're going to end with something positive as well. So when you're, you know, talking to one of your employees over an issue, it's always important to have those solutions. This is how I think you can fix this issue that we're having. But it's also important to start with, look, you do this and this and this really well. This is the area where you really kind of need to focus and make some improvements and adjustments. But we really appreciate all of these things that you are thriving in.
That's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So as I listen to you speak, there's another component I'm hearing that you've touched on a couple of times, but it's energy. Mm-hmm. How do you stay this positive, this focused all the time with all the things you're doing? I mean, so you said your default face is a smile. Obviously your default energy level's got to be like max, 2000 or something. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, that is a great point. I got to say, all the years I've known you, I walk into a room, it can be 6 a.m. That's when our shift started back in the day. You were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, even though you were tired, even though you'd sleep 3 hours, So truly, how do you do it? What do you do? What is your magic?
It used to be a lot more natural, I would say, until I hit my 40s. And now, it's a little bit more supplemented than it used to be. But part of it is really, like I said, before, figuring out how to, really balance all of those things. There's times when I consider my professional life. And so I don't take my mood to work. I don't take my personal life to work. I don't take those things to work. I really feel like I'm good at leaving those things at the door. And that allows me, again, to be successful in my professional life. But it has to go somewhere. It's that law of thermodynamics. It has to, it has to go somewhere. It doesn't just disappear. So part of it is having a really good or several outlets for those not so good feelings, the negative feelings, that uncertainty, sometimes the frustration and anger when, like you said earlier, things don't go your way. You don't have that 100% success rate. You've worked and worked and worked on something and it just doesn't go right. There has to be an outlet for that. And I recommend several, like I said, several outlets for that. One of mine is running. I love running. And that just, it saves me, I have to say. And it also is great for physical energy. The other part of that too is really having this belief that you are going to get through this, having this faith in your own ability to overcome. Maybe it's not going to be easy, and maybe it's going to take a really long time, or it's going to require you to step outside of your comfort zone or learn this new skill. But having that faith that you yourself can accomplish what you set out to accomplish really gives me that impetus and that motivation to just really continue to hit life running. I mean, sorry for the pun.
Yeah, hit life running. So I'm going to go on a humble moment on my side. And so I played athletics all the way through high school. I probably should have played college athletics. I had an opportunity. I didn't do it. And I discovered beer, pretzels, and pizza, potato chips, and all that's bad for you. And then lo and behold, I'm out working. I'm in middle management. And my son comes up and he was probably 4 or 5, maybe 6. And I had a beer belly and he hits me in the gut and says, "Dad, you're fat." It was an awakening moment. But like you're saying, you're running. So, if there's listeners out there and you feel like you're in a jam or you're stuck, do something, whether it be meditation, whether it be yoga, whether it's running, lifting weights, go find a hobby that helps you clear your mind from all the clutter, because the work life balance with stress and everything right now is off the charts. Mm-hmm. And I noticed that. So I've done some things in my life to become a better person. And one of them is eating healthier and working out more and doing all these things. And my mind is so much clearer. I have way more energy. I'm way more positive. And I think, and you mentioned it earlier, Jaime, and you didn't quite say it like this, but it's mind, body, and spirit. And you embodied it throughout this whole podcast. As we've been talking, you've been going through these different things. You talk about your beliefs, talking about your values, talking about all these different things you do that take care of yourself. I mean, hats off to you. You're definitely in the minority, I would say, in the world when it comes to middle management. And I'm not eliminating all the other middle managers that are listening and saying, because you don't do what Jaime does, doesn't mean you're a good one. What I'm saying is Jaime's at the high end of the spectrum and he's incredible. And there's one other thing that we haven't talked about yet. And we kind of talked about it when we were working with you on our prep for the show and stuff, Jaime. And when we work on that prep and you have this energy, and during that prep, you kept saying all the time, I'm willing to step up. I'm willing to step up. And I think you repeated that 100 times. Mm-hmm. Why is stepping up as a middle manager so important?
Well, I can say that in my personal experience and in my careers that I've had, throughout many years, it's just really allowed me to have opportunities to learn and grow and participate in meetings and trainings and events that I otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to participate in as somebody who is just doing the minimum. Seeing those areas of need and stepping into them proactively really has also, increased my skill set, to be quite honest. And as a result, it's allowed me to really improve my resume. Most of the time, 99% of the time, doing that makes your job more interesting. I'm a firm believer in that saying, if you're bored, it's your own fault. There's so much to do always, you just have to look for it. And in a professional setting, when you're somebody who's able to do that, not only are you helping the team, you're helping yourself, you're helping your own department, your own organization. You're showing your leadership what you're capable of, and that you're not just going to let problems persist. And it's also really the one thing I feel like, beyond all other things, that has allowed me to step into leadership positions in almost every single job that I've had. When I was 16, I had a job on campus at the university in Austin, or one of, and it was just a campus store job. And so I was the 16-year-old high school kid working with a bunch of college kids. And pretty quickly, I would say within a year, I became one of the supervisors. So I was the supervisor to all of these, 20-something about to graduate from college seniors. And all of them assumed that I was their age, or at least in college. But the biggest reason for that, and it's kind of been that way ever since, the biggest reason for that is because I saw what needed to be done. I didn't wait. I didn't hesitate. I asked for guidance when necessary, but I just did it. I stepped in and did it because it just needed to be done.
Well, and I can attest to that. I mean, we were in a place of transition several years ago when I was managing the department that you were in, and there was, positions had been cut. We were extremely lean, and I would say I was in that place of middle management at that point too, dealing with C-suite all day long and really needing to be there for our team. And you came in, and I just remember it so well. Just your willingness to say, what can I do? What can I do that will help you, but will help our team as well? And it took me a minute to even think through that, right? Like, that's a great question. I don't know. I'm holding so many things right now, and I'm trying not to let any ball drop. And inevitably, something does drop, especially when you're pulled in so many different directions. And for you to come in and see that, and to really just say, I am here to help and I want to learn. That was so key. And on a leadership side, that's a learning tool for your leader as well, because I had this opportunity to say, oh, wow, A, you want to help. This is phenomenal. B, you want to learn. What do I have to show you? How do I teach you what you need to know so that you can grow? But that's a huge benefit for everyone. So what do you think about that?
I mean, I was really, I really wanted to support you as my colleague, as my friend. So that was really important to me. You and I had a personal relationship, so that was a big part of my motivation. But I have to say, I'm really glad that I did, just because I did learn a lot from you, and I learned quite a bit about how to be an effective leader. As I was saying before, there's a difference between leader and manager, but there's also a difference between effective leadership and regular old leadership. And I feel like I learned a lot about those things from you specifically. I learned a lot about how to be assertive and not having to get what you want through yelling or through intimidation, or even to be passive and to give in every single time, because sometimes that wasn't appropriate or the right decision to make. So I learned a lot about how to be assertive and to give people the respect and dignity when they're speaking to you and you're in a leadership position. I learned a lot about how to encourage people to be more independent and have a higher quality work ethic, so that you weren't having to micromanage all the time. And there were occasions where you had to step in and correct someone's course of action. But I learned a lot about that. How do you teach people how to be more independent and get the work done and find their own motivation? I also, you allowed me to go to a lot of trainings, a lot of leadership development courses. And so to be honest, I hope that I helped you in a way that allowed you to really thrive. I feel like you were a great leader, a great manager as well. But honestly, it helped me. Part of that stepping up helped me tremendously. I feel like I'm a much better leader now. As a result, I learned so many more things. And to just get down to the nitty gritty, I have so much more to put on my resume as a result.
That's important.
You have an impressive resume. But unfortunately, Jaime, we're up to the end of this segment of the show. I want to thank you for coming on and opening up your heart and your humility with all of our listeners. It's what you've got to share is pretty powerful. So I can't thank you enough.
Thanks you to you guys. What you guys are doing is really incredible. And I feel like the more I see different managers, the more need I see for quality leadership training and development.
You can help us because you can go out onto social media and you can like, share, comment on all of our posts. You can follow us on all these different platforms. But honestly, we appreciate you. So with that, we thank you, Jaime. Have a great day.
You do the same. Thank you both so much.
All right, Brooke. That was a pretty awesome interview. We're going to bring Kevin in on this because we're going to close this out. We got 15 minutes.
Oh, great.
I got 3 questions.
Just what I was hoping.
So maybe we start with you, Kevin. All right. So after you speak with somebody like Jaime, what'd you learn?
Well, the first thing I learned, Rich, is that at this point in my life, I don't want to go into middle management.
It's a tough role, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. But I'm one of those people. I like to be something I think I learned from Jaime is that you can be a leader and still somewhat have like a servant's heart. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Which people like me Reds look at that and like servant. I'm nobody's servant. That's a sign of weakness. You know what I mean?
Dominate.
But it's actually the opposite because to be a leader, you need to serve the people who follow you and the people who rely on you for whatever it is that you do, for them. Be it leading them through a job or for providing them a service, something like that. So it's not in any way threatening one's hubris. Those two actually can coexist very effectively, I think. In fact, it's a requisite almost.
Yeah, no, he's got a great balance. He's just got a presence about him. When you're around him, it's like, holy cow, dude, where'd you get all this? So Brooke, what did you learn?
I am reminded of why I was so grateful for his presence. What I learned about him is he said it, but it came back to me stepping in when you're just saying yes.
Yeah,
so I mean, that's what it really was. He never said that, but that was my takeaway. You say yes. His
actions led with what he was thinking. You could pick up on that.
It's also very beneficial that he has the default smile because I have no poker face. Like, as you guys noticed today when he first came in and I was stressed like about the computer, I could have just played it totally cool and everything worked out fine. Yeah. But no, I'm like ripping, I thrive on appearing effective and competent. You know what I mean? So if anything goes wrong, I freak out, but it's not necessary. I need to be better at that. It's just staying cool.
That is one of his superpowers. I'm not going to lie. I know him well. We became great friends, which was so cool because I tend to separate business and friendship and everything. They're usually not together. He's a great friend now, but that man is juggling 10 balls, always, always going. You would never know though.
Yeah, he says he's hot-headed. I'm like, I can't picture him flying off the handle at all.
Oh, he has it. He has his moments.
He has the capacity for it. Yeah.
Well, I think we all do. Every human being has it if you press the right buttons on somebody eventually.
That's a good point.
But you know what?
He balances it out, right? He says he goes out and he does things like run. He plays, he's a musician. He cooks. He does all these things to go and relieve some of that stress.
Healthy outlets.
Yes.
But I don't have.
So if you look at American society, and I'm just going to categorize it, what do we see when we do it? And you see it on TV all the time. You go do your job, and then you go home, you eat a bag of potato chips, you grab a beer out of the fridge, and you eat a pizza, and you lay on the couch, you turn into a couch potato.
That's right.
That does not help anybody. I'm really sorry if people are offended by that, but you got to get up and you got to do something. Even if it's just a simple hobby, if it's making puzzles, if it's reading books, just go do something, but just don't sit there. And then you get self-absorbed into TV, and then you start listening to all that garbage, right? And we go on. But I know I can already see it on your face, Brooke. And you're looking at me right now. You're saying, hey, Rich, what did you learn?
Rich, what did you learn today?
I see now you caught me off guard because I was trying to be all funny. One thing I learned about is his willingness to always be learning, and he's coachable.
Yes.
I mean, he never came out once and said, hey, I'm coachable. You could just pick up on how he was talking. So I think if you're out there in middle management and you want to help, is you got to be coachable so you can understand what your leaders above you want, so you can take and teach that message below, which is another thing he said. He's willing to learn, and then he wants to go teach. And I think there's so many people that want to do one or the other, right? And to be effective, you've got to do both. So I thought that was pretty cool.
I agree with when he's saying, I'm sorry, Brooke, I didn't mean to cut you off. About always be learning, just particularly applied to me, because in this business, it's constantly changing. And the spot to learn about what's new and what's happening and what's, going to be in the future is from younger people. I have to realize, I still think I'm like the age of when I graduated college, but I'm like, no, I'm in the mid 30s now. And I don't know all about this stuff, and things are changing. And now I'm one of the older guys. So I need to stay plugged in with these people.
You're the monster millennial.
I know, but I need to be always learning and evolving because it's always changing.
I had I went to a speaker event sponsored by an organization I used to work with, and they had a futurist come out and talk to us. And one of the things that she said you should do, and I love this idea, and you just touched on it, is go find a reverse mentor. Go find somebody that's young and start talking to them, because they're the future. They're going to tell you what they want, and they don't have any filters. And it's where the world's going right now. If you go talk to a regular mentor, it's based off of their past experiences, right?
Yeah.
You go talk to somebody younger and they're just getting into it. They're like, here's what I'm doing. Here's where I'm going.
And they're excited. I mean,
Yes.
they're still excited about stuff. You go to the other side, even with management and everything. Once you get there and you've been in the grind for a while, you're just doing the deal. When you step into it, and that's what you say in Jaime all the time, though, there's this excitement about everything he's doing. He's like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, willing to say yes, stepping up, willing to learn, asking questions. He asks so many questions, which is that childlike. I mean, you're talking about millennial, people coming up. What makes it great? You're still curious.
Well, that makes
absolutely
makes him a great leader. Is he's willing to, he's patient, and he asks those questions so he can learn more. He's not asking questions to grill you. He's asking questions to learn about you.
I think that's important. You said something earlier that was so key. You honed in on, we've had so many people on the show that have multiple degrees, are well-known in whatever they're doing. And now we have a middle manager that's doing so many different things, and he doesn't hold multiple degrees. He doesn't, and yet he's a lifelong learner.
Yes.
And he's always willing to try something new. And if you just sit down with him, you're like, oh, wait, you've done this, you've done this, it's so interesting.
Yeah. So next question then. So the first one is what did we learn today? So number 2, where do we go from here? How do you grow from what we just learned and we put that into real life? So taking what Jaime just taught us, what do we do next?
Well, that ties in perfectly with how I answered the first question. At this point, I don't want to be a middle manager, but I would certainly like to have one.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, that would be fantastic. Somebody who's effective like that, who's always someone, young, who's always asking questions, and that would be fantastic.
That'd be a pipe dream for a small little entrepreneurial company like we all have, right?
It is, exactly. But I'm like, someday, man, you never know.
One thing I think I can learn from him is something I've been working on, and he brought up very well, my resting mad face. I mean, the guy's always smiling. He's always positive. Just his ambition for life. How do you do that? I think I do it a lot right now, but obviously when you meet somebody like Jaime, you can increase it. So one of the things I'm going to work on is how can I become more of what I already am? So in other words, how can I become better? Because if I stay the same, right? If I'm the same today as I was yesterday, I'm not growing.
No.
So now I got to figure out, okay, I got to take a little piece of Jaime and I got to use that. And it's like, okay, I got to, even if it's just the thickness of a piece of paper tomorrow, because what happens after you have a whole ream of papers? Now we're that much better. And then we keep doing it over time, and we can get to a place where, I mean, I don't know if Jaime's naturally born with that much energy, but dang it, I want some of it.
I need to grow or someone's going to pass me by,
Yes.
This podcast thing isn't this new, exciting, up and coming medium anymore. It's established,
Yes.
I'm not the only guy out there anymore. There's plenty of them. And to stay ahead, you really got to always be growing and learning.
Well, you're the only podcast producer in my world. Okay. So
Well,
that's
that's
all
true.
that matters. That's all that matters.
You're
I'm not
number
cheating
one.
on you.
Well, thanks, guys. Hope it stays that way.
Primo. Yeah. I would say he started with this. Listen, because I'm a talker. I'm a talker. And, but listening is so key because there is that humility to him too. I admire that so much because I respect his willingness to say yes to just about anything. And he's not afraid to fail. He never said that.
No,
but
he didn't.
You're not willing to say yes to that many things if you're not afraid of it. When you are a perfectionist, and I feel like I'm always a recovering perfectionist, I say no before I even say yes because of the fear of maybe failing. And that's something I'm continuously working on.
Yeah, I don't think he's got any fear. I didn't see any fear in his eyes. Did you see any fear in his eyes?
No.
Yeah, I didn't hear it either.
I know. I
someone who will say yes just immediately and be like, well, if I don't know how to do it, I'll figure it out later. But still during that time, I'm very afraid of failing. But I realize that's definitely a possibility.
Here's something I picked up and I'd be willing to guess about Jaime is number one, he's going to say yes. But then number two, he's not just going to go assume he knows how to do it. He'll ask some questions.
Yeah.
He'll find resources and ask questions on how he can do it because I picked up on this too. He doesn't want to let anybody down.
No.
He wants to make sure he gets it across. And I think, those two daughters have got to have the best dad in the world because he's not going to let them down.
Well, like Brooke said, that you can really let that get to you if you're a perfectionist, the fear of letting someone down.
You really can. Yeah. Yeah. It's something that you need to be willing to let go of. Yeah.
So now the next one, how do we use this? How do we move forward and use it in our lives today? Taking what Jaime taught us and go forward.
Oof.
You want to take this one first?
Yeah. Somebody else take the torch.
I guess what I really need to be doing is, okay, this is something that Jaime definitely made me realize is that I have been a little bit stuck and not growing lately. And I think a lot of people have been just because of what's been going on in the country in terms of the pandemic and whatnot. It hasn't been a particular time of prosperity and growth. But just because that stuff's happening doesn't mean you can't always be growing. I can still be implementing those things that he was just talking about, even during this time, and not get in my own head too much about, I think a lot of people have, especially small business owners, get into this thing where they feel bad for themselves right now and like all this, and it's not my fault, but you still can be growing and making your business, making yourself better at what you're doing, especially now when things are growing, getting better. But I would say that, don't keep telling yourself that you can't grow during this time because you definitely can.
Yeah, you can grow at all times, right? You don't change, You don't change the flower, you change the environment.
Yeah. I've never heard that.
I never heard that either.
Yeah. You don't change the flower, you change the environment.
Yeah. If a flower is not growing, you don't go replace the flower, right? You
change the soil.
You go change it. Exactly. You add water, you add fertilizer, you add soil, whatever. Yeah. So that's what it takes about growing up, helping and being a mentor, growing leaders, whatever. The person's going to be there. We just got to change the environment around and make it better for them. Yeah.
I would say, And I would say, thinking through this a little bit, he reaches out beyond himself, even in times where things are hard. He's always looking beyond himself.
Yeah. And
I always feel so much better when I'm looking beyond myself. If I get stuck in who I am or stuck in this, whatever that mind loop is, I'm not my best self. And in that sense, I've always admired Jaime. I'd like to do more of that.
And one other thing he never talked about, he never mentioned the word ego. He always said humility. You can tell he's a very humble guy. He does not have an ego, but what he does have is a tremendous amount of self-confidence.
And what he might not even see now, he has an incredible sense of purpose, and everyone around him benefits from that purpose because his true goal in life is just to continue growing.
Well, when you have purpose, you give hope. And when you have hope, you inspire. When you inspire, then people want to work for you.
Yes.
There's a reason why the guy's so likable and why he's so successful as a middle manager. Mm-hmm. And he didn't say it when we're talking to him today, but when we were interviewing him, getting ready for the show, he kept saying he doesn't want to move up. He wants to stay right there. That's a sweet spot. But with that, we're up against the end of the hour. So it's time we close this podcast down.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for joining us today on our leadership journey.
If you're looking for more leadership guidance, please reach out to us and give us a follow on your favorite social media platform. Dignity-leadership.com on the World Wide Web.
Dignity Leadership Consulting on Facebook.
Dignity Leadership, all one word, on Instagram.
Dignity Leadership on LinkedIn.
Dignity Leadership, one word, on TikTok.
Dignity Leadership Live on YouTube.
At DLC with Rich on Twitter.
And at DLC Brooke at Twitter.
So keep paddling.
Keep paddling.